Starting a startup is risky business. 90% of startups fail, and 10% of them fail in the first year. Given the odds of success are so low, what could possibly compel someone to leave their cushy, six-figure paying job in pursuit of their dream startup? Is it the promise of wealth and fame? Is it for the thrill of it? Well, today I have a special guest joining us who went through that exact same journey. He was a staff level engineer at Twitter, he was making a very comfortable six-figure paying job, and he just decided to leave everything behind to chase his dream and make his startup come true. I wanted to share this conversation because I think there's a lot we can learn from him. What was his experience growing to be a staff level engineer at Twitter? How did he decide that he wanted to start his own startup? And what were the things that he did to prepare financially and mentally before jumping into this startup train? Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so today we have Julien. So he was my coworker at Twitter, staff engineer before deciding to start his own company. And today we're going to chat with Julien to learn about his background, how he got to staff engineer, what was his experience like, and why he decided to jump on the startup train. So welcome, Julien.
Hey.
What was your experience like at Twitter, and how do you kind of grow into staff engineer? And we can probably start from there.
Yeah. So I don't have a really typical background. I got a PhD in France, and after that I worked mostly in research. And I started after that working in the industry. So I moved in AWS, and after that Twitter. And the thing is that really helped me is working in different industries and different systems. So back in my days as a software engineer for embedded system, I was doing mostly C and ADA. After that, when I moved in AWS, that was mostly C++ and Perl. And after that at Twitter, you know that, like it's mostly Scala and Java. I really enjoy Scala. I think Scala really teach you really good programming techniques and programming habits. Functional, I really love functional programming, and you can apply this principle everywhere you can. About the growth, there is not really specific insight about that. What I just did is just do some stuff I love, and that's how I came. I don't have any magic recipe about jumping from junior to senior to staff.
Okay. So you started in like a PhD. So you start from academia.
Yeah.
And then you moved into, you said Amazon AWS? Was that like your first real job out of academia?
So just after the PhD, I moved, my first job was at the European Space Agency. That's kind of a dream, in fact, for many people to work in agencies that do rocket and design rocket launcher and satellite software.
Oh, wow.
But after that, so I worked there for 2.5 years, and after that I worked at Carnegie Mellon. Carnegie Mellon they have a dedicated lab for working with the DoD. It's not dedicated to the DoD, but they do a lot of research for the Army. It's called the Software Engineering Institute. And I stayed there for 3 years. And after that, I jumped to AWS. I loved Amazon. I really loved Amazon. That's probably the best company I worked for. Many people hate it, and many people will tell you, yeah, but the culture, people work a lot. Yeah, but look at what they achieved. That's just amazing. Like, they went from a website selling books to right now being the supermarket of the world, but also being like the company that hosts most of the websites. It's really amazing what they achieved in just 20 years.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Amazon, it's notorious for the work-life balance at the company, right? A lot of people are saying you work a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The company has certain leadership principles around, saving resource, saving money.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like you really enjoy that environment, and it seems like you thrive in that environment.
Yeah.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. Like, do you think that there are certain types of personalities or certain types of character in order to thrive in their environment and to be successful?
Well,
Amazon?
Look at So it's pretty clear. If you go and work in Amazon, read the leadership principle. And if you disagree with them, don't join Amazon. I mean, that's as simple as that.
Right.
But there are very clear principle and guidelines that drive the work. And anytime you do something, you refer to this principle. And you know, you can criticize some of them. For example, frugality. You're not going to have these big TV when you project a PowerPoint slide. But at the end of the day, that's also really helpful because you don't waste time in meetings when in fact people are going to sleep while presenting slides. When you start a meeting with Amazon, you start with a one-pager document or maybe two-pager document, and people need to read the document before going to the meeting. How many times did you have a meeting and in fact you didn't even know what the meeting was about, and you just have a sense of not providing any value? So that's some principles that are really good. I feel the engineering culture at Amazon was really great and probably the strongest in any company I've been so far. It just, you have a goal, you know exactly what goal you need to achieve, and you work towards that goal. How many companies don't even know what they are doing and where do they need to go? I mean, that's just what it is today.
Right. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right in that, like, I think working with people who came out of Amazon, for example, I think they really embody that leadership principles, right? They're very impact driven. They're focusing on, maximizing their impact through like measurement, through metrics, things like that. So it's I think the style of people who come out of Amazon is really distinct. And I think like working with you at Twitter as well, I think you kind of brought along some of that culture with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there is something that really, so there is something that really marked me at Amazon. Every day when you come in the office at a certain date, you receive the key metrics of your product and your team. And that needs to grow. That just like the number needs to be in the green. And if the number is in the red for a few days, you need to figure out why. And that just show you where you are every day. That just tell you that's a dashboard that tell you are going to the right direction. I mean, again, just to emphasize that, how many times people don't even know where they are going? If you need to go from point A to point B, and then you have point A, you have point B, and sometimes you have people that do this. In Amazon, it's really clear that you need to go from point A to point B, and what are the metrics and what need to be done. After that, you can argue that some people argue that, about work-life balance and it's really hard and you have on call. Yeah, sure. On the other hand, one of the things is when you are at Amazon, you are paid very well. You are a really great engineer. You have a really great job, generally speaking. When you work at AWS, I don't know for the other department, but I think in that case, you also need to give your best and also be available. And if you think sometimes the service is not sustainable, well, bring that up and try to improve the bottom line. And I've done it at AWS. I've done it at Twitter. You try to improve the stability of the service to have less, issues and on-call issues and things like that. But I really love these principles.
Yeah. So you're at Amazon, and then you mentioned 3 years?
No. I stayed in Amazon for a little bit more than a year. I moved, in fact, so for personal reason at the time. You move jobs generally because of you don't like the job, which was not my case. You can have more money, which was not my case. So basically, at the time, my partner got a job in California, and I had to move in California. And Amazon don't have a lot of office in California, so I moved a little bit. And then, the thing is, as Amazon didn't have any office, they took a WeWork for me at the time. But being separated from the Seattle office, it's not really great, especially when you're supposed to lead a team. So at the time I was like, that's bad. And then I'm going to look for another job. And At the time I interview with a lot of companies, I also learn how to interview. There is an art to interview. I can, like for every big, like interviewing, or right now as I'm a founder, I raise money. You definitely have an art about how to practice this. And initially I was really bad at interviewing. When I left Amazon, I decided to interview very seriously. I had offer from many companies and decided to join Twitter. And that's how I arrived at Twitter in 2018.
Oh, that's interesting. So, right after Amazon, so it sounds like, people usually say when you leave a company, it's either because you're not paid well, you're not excited about the job, or your manager is not great. But it seems like for you, it was just like the position of it. They didn't have a position for you in California. Yeah.
So after that, they proposed to move in different teams. For example, they have some office in Palo Alto. But at the time, going to Palo Alto every day by car was just not possible. Like, nope, thank you. 2 hours commute. Nope, not gonna work. So that's why after that I moved at Twitter. I will. So right now I decided to make my own company and make a startup. But there is no doubt that if one day I'm back on the market for a job, Amazon will probably be one of the company I will consider strongly.
So when you were in between, right, like between Amazon and before deciding on Twitter, maybe could you talk a little bit about like what was your criteria? What sort of companies were you looking at, and what was your decision-making framework for deciding to join Twitter? Yeah,
so actually that's a great question, because at the time, so of course I'm not gonna lie, money was one of the dimension, but really quickly when you interview for a lot of companies, everybody is gonna have more or less the same offer, plus or minus 20K, maybe based on bonus and whatever. At the time, I was really good at interviewing, meaning that I knew exactly how to message managers. And I remember one manager, and the manager at Twitter just told me, "Hey, I really want you to meet the team. I want you to be comfortable here. We really like your profile." They made an excellent offer at the time. I met my future manager, my future team, and I think this kind of personal touch shows that they care. And I knew that by joining this team, they will really care about me. And I will be, I don't know, I will not be just another engineer. As a matter of fact, that was probably a dumb idea because this person left the company 6 months after. That was probably a super dumb idea. But at the time, I really felt, they're gonna be really nice with me, and this is the company I want to work for, rather than other company who are more like, hey, that's the offer, okay, bye, and not really having a personal touch.
I see. And what was your decision-making framework there? How do you decide, okay, Twitter is the right one? Was it purely based on the interaction with the hiring manager, the personal touch that made the difference? Or were there other things other than compensation, right, that you were looking at?
Well, I mean, when you are in the Bay, you are looking at a commute time. And if I look at Twitter, so at the time I had an offer from Twitter, I had an offer from Square, and I had an offer from Facebook. And another company like Slack, but if you look, the commute was the same. It was roughly the same. Like you need to take a boat and go to the city, and Facebook had a bus. So the decision framework was really about what the values they're gonna bring. Will I thrive in that environment? Is a manager somebody that is accessible and I can talk to when I need? And that was basically the bottom line. So if I look at the criteria, the first was money, commute, and then plus like small bonus that I can see and if I will be comfortable in that company. But to be honest, I think there was at the time, if I look back, there was no bad decision. Like, Twitter, Twitter is not a bad company. I think Square is also a great company. You can see the stock right now. Maybe from a money perspective, I should have joined Square, but you never know who will be there and who you will be working with. So in retrospect, and look, I mean, I'm gonna talk and be really honest here. Like, no matter where you go, you're gonna be paid so much money. At the end of the day, you also need to be in a position when you're gonna learn new skills, you're gonna grow, and you're gonna learn new stuff. That's something that is really important. Never stay in your comfort zone. And so none of these choices would have been a bad one. Maybe from a financial perspective, Square will be the best one. But again, there is many unknowns.
Got it. So it sounds like there were really no regrets, so to speak, here going with Twitter.
No, not at all. And then, I stayed 1 year at Twitter as you in the beginning to work in the infrastructure of Twitter. And then decided to move to learn new stuff, and I moved in the ads department. And in ads, I mean, as you know, I started one team to implement one kind of product, and after that, I moved to another team, and eventually decided to leave.
So a quick question there. So when you joined Twitter, do you join as a senior engineer and then got promoted to staff, or do you join as staff?
No, I joined as staff. All the position I got at the time were all staff level.
Got it.
So you need, there is this website levels.fyi, and if you look, the level SD3 in Amazon. So I was a senior in Amazon. Senior in Amazon more or less like match the staff level. When I left, at the time I left Twitter, I think I was probably close to go and get a promotion. But the thing is, I already applied in Techstars and decided to join Techstars and make my own company.
They say, oh my